Okay, folks, and welcome back to the Dad Bod Bible, where real men talk. An opportunity for men to actually talk about man shit. Andy Burrows, good friend of mine, episode 4. We were back in the MMA days when it was cage fighting and headbutts were allowed, and it was insane. How are you keeping?
Not too bad, mate. Thanks for having me on the show for a start.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Well, you probably should have started this about 10 years ago, to be honest with you, because I think it's a really good platform, and I think somebody like you will be very, very good at this. You just have that good personality. You're good on camera, and I do think this will be a massive success for you. So all the best.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to be more Joe Rogan and be fucking on the fence with things. And this is my Zen lessons.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, it's the best way to do it. In fairness,
yeah.
I think it's a great medium, and the good thing is as well, people like you have such a vast, bank of people they can talk to all the time. From fitness professionals, nutrition professionals, all this right down to people like me who are, again, I suppose fitness professionals as well, but also have been involved in combat sports with you right at the genesis, the ground level.
For me, this podcast actually, I started Dad Bod Bible 5 years ago, just came up with it one night when I was in the shower and couldn't see my dick anymore because my stomach was out. And I was like, the kid was 7 months old, and I was like, oh, geez, I'm a trainer, and I'm like this. So if I'm like that, what other dads are like that? And that's just where this sort of evolved. But this podcast itself came up because men need to start talking about things. I haven't been shy about my mental health issues. So I do like to talk. I'm very introvert, believe it or not, but I do like to talk to people I know and have good chats and good debates. And I'll argue with anyone about anything. It's just who I am, and I enjoy doing that. But I also think that there's this definite culture and movement towards trying to feminize men.
I'm not even too sure about the term feminized, but I have had a conversation. See, this view of the destruction of the modern male for about a year now. And anybody, good mates of mine, I've always had this discussion with. And it started out whenever I first heard the words toxic masculinity. And now, do I believe there is such a thing? Yeah, I fucking do. But do I believe there's just toxic human beings? And need to be a male or a female? Of course, toxic people fucking exist. But to attach a trait of a male to it led people basically to just be able to kick guys around more. I use the example of what we see every day in the media. Young men, specifically in Northern Ireland, 16 to 50, are the biggest danger to themselves through suicide. This is something that the statistic is not brought forward. We have one of the highest reported rates of suicide in Western Europe, and we are a modern fucking country. So we look at our media, and we are bombarded with images of men being stupid. The dad's the idiot. The mother is always a savior. There's a recent advert on TV now. It's for a car company called Cinch. And it's a guy, he was on this morning or something like that, and he comes along to the car, and they describe the guy. They're talking about the car, and they describe the man in the car as the body works okay, but there's nothing under the hood, because it's okay to be a stupid guy.
Yeah.
Denigrating the man again. You look at the adverts for is it Jessica Johnson-Thompson, the runner, the Muller adverts, and it always says thick, and it shows you the girl stirring the yogurt, and then there's a picture of a good-looking guy, and it's just really the man's thick. He's just eye candy stupid. If we were to make adverts about females like that,
I was going to say the exact same thing there.
And I would be one of the first people in the queue to go, fucking stop that. What age are you? But it's okay to do it to a guy. And I've seen that. I don't know if it's a feminization of the modern male, but it is definitely.
Do you not think so? I would go as far as say feminization. If you look at the amount of guys, and this is in this cancel culture world, you've got to be careful. You've got to be more liberal and understanding towards people. I get that. But you can't deny, our generation did not get their eyebrows waxed. We did not go for some bit after some bit. Well, some did, but not most of us didn't. The description of what a man is has slowly eroded, and it's becoming more in tune with the female. And listen, the problem with masculinity was we were male chauvinistic pigs. We did not treat women generally this is through history, right? And there is a definite reason and need to have women more empowered. Like I've got 2 young daughters myself, and I will do anything. And I'm also got Gail's daughter here as well. So there's 3 young girls under the age of 7 that I'm going to be the example for them for the foreseeable future. I'm going to be their first example for 2 of them. So I need to be careful. So I do not like I am all for empowering women, but there's a balance in life, the yin and the yang. And the man needs to be man, the woman needs to be woman. And I do not think it's the wrong to say that the male's duty, and this is throughout nature, protect and provide. Well, maybe not lands, but protect and provide. You know, if someone comes into the house, it's not Gail going to get out of bed.
Yeah.
You know, it's me that's going to come down, and am I going to fight them? I'm going to fight to the death. I don't care if they come to my house, and I'm going to have to defend my family. And it's also socially accepted that the man is the provider. Now, not so much today, but I think it's also part of the problem. But I'll go back to that in a second. But we provide and protect, women nurture and care. When you fail, who did you call for?
Exactly. You always call for your mom.
So why is that wrong to now say? That is just a reality. You know, you want your mummy when you're injured. When the man's down in the field, he was probably calling, you know, soldiers are crying for their mummy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like this is just who we are as human beings and have been.
I think that's pre-written into our DNA. I don't think that, and I think in a weird way, modern society is trying to chip away at that. And I'm not saying, you see, I would believe myself to be a civil libertarian in life. I am massively for equality, absolutely massively for equality. And I don't think that by doing and saying things that we are saying is unequal. I don't think that's unequal. I think it's a debate that needs to be had. I think that if you're going to tell me that, you know, a man when he's a young boy wouldn't cry for his mum if he hurts himself, I think that's insane, because every child does it. It's pre-written. You can't help that. That's written into our system.
They carried us for 9 months.
Exactly.
You've got them in you, like, you know, you were inside them.
Yeah, and that's why I think I don't know whether or not it's a feminization of a male, or I think it's just, to me, it's just the erosion of a male identity. I don't know whether or not they're trying to turn a male more towards a feminine aspect of life, but I do believe what's happened is the male identity is being slowly and surely eroded, because we are seeing more and more times where it's okay if a man's a dickhead, you know, it's okay. He's just a thick man, and that's really unfair. And I think that sets up poor role models for young guys in the future. And I specifically pointed out, in our country, very, very small portion of the planet, but we have a serious, serious problem with young males and their mental health.
Okay, well, here's part of my theory in this would be, and it has to be taken into consideration, and it's not, I want to emphasize this, it is not the woman's fault here, okay? They can't help this, just like men can't help it. There's too many single mothers raising males, and they don't know how to raise a male because they aren't male. It'd be like if God forbid, if my ex-partner died and I had to raise my children, I could not raise them the way a female could raise them, because I don't know what a period is like, and I don't know what it's like to grow boobs. Well, actually I do, but I don't know I don't know anything about being a woman. No. So we've got this generational thing now of lots of young men who at 13 are thrust into being the man of the house, and they're in a position they shouldn't be in at that moment in time, and they have no one to actually influence them. So the testosterone kicks in and they become this uncontrollable kid, and then and that escalates and escalates and escalates.
But that's to do, in my opinion, as well, with a positive male influence.
Yes.
You know, our society is very fractious.
Yin and yang.
Yeah, it's a very fractious society, and I think as well that people, and this is one of the things that I'm more happier about. People aren't staying in shitty relationships forever anymore, specifically women. So if there is a shit relationship that a girl's in, and she may already have children, she can easily just go, fuck that, I'm not putting up with that anymore, and leave. It's not a societal ill anymore, whereas it was before. And I think that has led to maybe some of this. And then without a positive male role model in a young male's life, it kind of sets him up badly for later on. But also conversely to that, if a male sees an abusive male treat his mother that way, that's a shit fucking role model straight away, because he thinks that might be the way to treat a woman.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up. So it was.
You know, so
we're probably in the second generation.
Yeah.
Single mothers, and the this has already been seen before, you know. So it's a societal problem that needs fixing with mental health issues that we don't have the provisions for.
One of the things I would say as well is our country being very unique. The impact of what has been called the Troubles cannot be overlooked. Whether,
of course,
I don't agree with any of it. No matter what side of the fence you fell on, it was all fucking wrong. But what the damage was done was behind the closet, the closed door of the societies that were people wouldn't have reported things because you didn't want to bring an outside, influence into that area. So things went on behind closed doors that would never go on today. And I think that influence is still there. That really dark sort of nature, it still exists in our society.
This country's a tinderbox still. It could quite easily, a spark could now, the whole big C word thing has exposed the governments massively, their incompetence, and the voting of orange and green has probably led us to this position. Old cultures. And I suppose that brings us down to thing. The one thing about combat sports like MMA was it brought that division to a head, and we confronted it, and it was impossible not to, in the sense that if there was an issue there, you were going to fight it out.
Yeah.
And when you fought it out, you had respect for the guy, and then all that other bullshit was left behind. Mm-hmm. And it's something
I would say in any form of combat sport that I've ever been involved in, MMA, boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, whatever, I have never experienced sectarianism between competitors.
No. Never.
In boxing, unfortunately, I've seen it in boxing with fans, but not with competitors.
Right.
But I've never witnessed or been involved in any form of sectarian interaction between competitors.
It wouldn't have happened. It just wouldn't have been allowed to happen, because there isn't, unless you're a fighter, you don't understand what it's like. You're willingly going to a gym every day, knowing you're going to get punched, knowing you're going to get kicked, knowing that someone slagged you and it's going to go a wee bit rough that day, or you and your mate are going to go at it and someone's going to stick on the Rocky theme tune. It's going to be 30% harder and you're going to get hurt. Yeah. We don't only do this, but it's a different mindset.
It definitely is. People who are involved, I always think I draw a massive parallel between combat sports because they're single participation sport and other like endurance sport, like long distance cycling and long distance running, because you are going to feel pain and a great deal of pain, and it's how you deal with that pain that leads to not to success, because you won't have success all the time. It's just a simple fact. You're not going to get it. But how you deal with that pain, both psychologically and physically, is what makes you into the person that you are and what makes you come back. There's plenty of people go to boxing gyms, there's plenty of people go to MMA clubs, and they go 2 or 3 times to brag to their mates that they do cage fighting or they do an inverted commas, a very Belfast thing, a bit of boxing. I would always love to know which bit it is, which bit, but they never go back. They will never, because it's not for them. You're not cut out for that. You like the stories, but you're not cut out for the actual act of it.
Do you think that? I think within every man, there is genuinely the ability to unleash an animal. If it came down to, if you're fighting for your life, everyone's like I say, every single person on this earth has got the ability to kill. We know that. We know that. Every single person has got the ability to love, and every single person has got the ability to fucking fight when they have to.
Yeah.
And I do think, I think we're in a world where social media has taken over so much. Like, you can't do anything wrong, or you can't do anything stupid without the risk of being exposed and being the laughing stock or whatever.
It's the ridicule factor. It's that being outed as a bit of a dickhead.
Yes.
People are petrified of.
You're looking for social security.
I have fucking zero shame. And I'm going to tell you where my shame left. And this is a very amusing bit for me. It was literally where my whole shame left. Cage Wars 2002 in Portsmouth. Davy Patterson fought John Williamson. I was actually talking to John Williamson yesterday. We were talking about this show. But where my shame left was when I was basically on the ground getting elbowed. It was bloody awful. And I could hear the crowd chant, "Fuck him up, fuck him up, fuck him up." I'm like, really? And it wasn't like this was incredibly painful. It was just like, oh, this is fucking shit. I'm going to have to eventually, if I'm conscious, stand up when this is over. And at that point, I ceased to give a fuck what the outside world viewed me like. I just didn't care. And that stuck with me. And it has stuck with me to now.
I remember, who was it I fought? Oh, God, I can't remember his name now. Great guy. Fuck, it's gone. I'll come back to me. But it was the time in Davies' show in the Ramble Inn that the rope broke. I don't know if you were there.
I wasn't there, but I know that.
I was in the middle of fighting, he pushed again, and the rope snapped, and we had to start all over again. But I got beat anyway. But I was standing with mates, was still dressed up, and they were all saying, "Oh, unlucky man." I was like, "Oh, whatever." And some guy goes, "Fuck, what happened to you there, big man? You're not the best, are you in there?" And I was like, "I tell you what, hold on a wee second. I'm going to ask Davey to fight you at the end of the show, okay? And we'll get you in, and me and you will fight, and then we'll see who it is." And I walked away to get Davey, and I was like, "Hey, big lad, I'm only joking, hey, fucking, I'm only joking, hey." All that country. But I was raging because it's like, it doesn't matter if you lose. It doesn't matter what. Like, if you have the balls to step in there, you have more balls than 90% of other men.
Of course you do, more than 90%.
And like, all they're doing is exposing their fears, and that's why they're so. But it's just so infuriates me.
Also, people like going to things like that because they are most. Maybe I'm generalizing too much. People who go to watch MMA, a lot of them are fans and they like the sport. That's good. A lot of them are friends of fighters. Maybe have no fucking interest in MMA. But there are other people who go to watch it because that is their major fucking terror in life. And when they view another person doing it and maybe feeling, that helps them along psychologically. They're like, "Oh yes," it's like, "Fuck, that wasn't me." And that's one of those people you came into contact with, and so that exposed his fear because that guy's probably strutted around some fucking middle Ulster town in his life, never had a real fight, maybe punched some guy in a bar once, but he's never got into the cage or a ring to face somebody who's been training, who has died, who has put the effort in, who's put the work in. And it's two individuals who have made a conscious contract mentally, physically, psychologically to fight one another. Most people are physically incapable of that. And I mean properly physically incapable. And I was one of them. I was one of them.
But it's a preservation instinct. We don't want to die. Like, it goes back for pre-evolutionary times, or if you broke your leg, you might die. That might be the end of you. So fighting's a last resort. So it's a strange thing that humans have fought wars so much. Like, none of the soldiers ever want to fight those wars.
Yeah, but I always think if you put politicians in the fight a
war. Yeah, I'm saying I've never met any soldier after a war who said to me it was the best experience of his life and he can't wait to do it. Well, I haven't met one. Maybe there are crazy people like that. But lost my train of thought there. What was I going to say?
That fight you had in the Ramble Inn, and I basically was pointing out the fact that sometimes.
Oh yes.
Afterwards, fear.
But because you brought me into when you're talking about cage wars. You're saying that fear. I had experienced the exact same thing in cage wars at that time in Galway.
Lee Therafel, that was a guy. He was fucking.
Oh, he was about 35 million kilo heavier. See, I just remember two big white flashes, and it was like, what was it?
Was it Lee McGuinness you fought, or was it Lee? It was Lee McGuinness. Heavy set guy.
Aye.
Yeah, he was quite good actually as well. I remember Lee being very good.
Oh, he hit me 2 shots on the floor, and there was like 2 explosions. And the referee obviously called it, and he came up, was like, "Are you okay?" And I just looked, I was like, "What took you so long?" I was like, "Because you weren't going to tap. You were not going to tap for strikes."
You remember the Cage Wars referee at that stage before Alan Lowry? That was a guy called Fred Ratto. Do you remember him?
He had a goatee beard. So he had a wee goatee beard.
He was like Motley. He worked for Motley Crue or something in his life some way. I'm not sure what capacity, but he would have let you get fucking mopped up and down the mat until the point of death. Joe, I fought a guy called John Dean, and I remember I broke my hand the first couple of seconds, absolutely death, and eventually I had him in an armbar, dying seconds of the first round, knowing I'm not coming out for the second, and I literally had the arm was bent double, and I was like shouting at him, tap, 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 and he was like, no, and I remember popping this, and you can just hear that, and I looked up and I was like, "Are you gonna fucking stop it?" And the referee went, and I was like, his arm is clearly broken. And then eventually he just, "Oh yeah, okay, stop the fight." And I remember John and I were out later on, he had his arm in a sling, and he's like, why? And he goes, I didn't think it was too bad. I was like, no, that's...
Back in the day, it was nuts, wasn't it?
That sort of thing to me, even today, watching, like, like watching the UFC or, you know, any other promotion, when people are in submissions and you know this person's not going to tap, that limb is going to break. I have this real horror with that. I don't know why.
Tony Ferguson fight, do you know what his arm, when he got that arm bar he got sunk into?
Oh,
My face in the pillow, I was going, Jesus, someone, how that man's arm didn't snap in half, I don't know.
I tell you, you know Peter Lavery as well.
Aye.
I was talking to Peter Lavery about this, and he's a very high-ranking official and has refereed in the UFC and judged in the UFC. And he was telling me a story about refereeing a fight in Cage Warriors a few years back, and it was two female professionals. One of them put the other one in an armbar, and Peter says this fucking armbar was just as deep as you're ever going to get. The fight was over, and this girl refused to tap. And it was going to the point, he says he could see the arm bent double, and he just dives in and stops the fight. Says, no, that's it. You're going to get badly injured. Off you go. And he said afterwards he was approached by their head official, who's quite a famous UFC referee, and said, tell me why you stopped that fight. And he says, well, her arm was going to break. He says, so what? They're professionals. That was the... So that's... And I was like, what? He goes, yeah. I was just told you should have just let the fight go. They've made that decision themselves. I'm like, that is insane.
You can't...
I don't think that's right. But you know, going, holy fuck, what? That's you know, I have the same idea.
It's a great... you're on the fence. I understand it because, like, maybe that guy's willing to fight or that girl's willing to fight one arm. You know, that's happened before. The Forrest Griffin done it all, you know, so it's happened before.
Forrest Griffin, Rich Franklin, you could clearly go through, like, looking back in history in boxing, you can talk about Danny Williams knocking out Mark Potter with a dislocated shoulder, being allowed to come out with a dislocated, you know, nowadays.
So I get it, but you've also got to think of, like, you know, at a grassroots level, there's going to be kids watching that, you know, maybe getting excited. And their parents, you know, they're going like, I'm not letting my look at that, you know. And then you maybe stop the like Tony Ferguson, McGregor coming on the scene because of the. So
yeah,
you've got. I always go back to grassroots because what I discovered when I was coaching MMA that was my love.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing like coaching professionals. It was great fun, though, and it was good crack, and you loved it. Like you're on something like Carl Murray, he just annihilates you. Do you know? It was just like, but it's still good fun. But then there was nothing better than seeing some kid coming in and he was petrified, you know, bullied. You can see it. I could sense him. I was those for me. Yeah. Maybe it was a personal thing for me but I was that child, you know. And if someone like me had came up to me and done that, then who knows where I'd have been, you know. And that's the way I think about it. And there's nothing better than you see them terrified and they don't know what to do. 3 months later, bang, they've hit an armbar on someone. They're like, and you just see that and you go, fuck. That's to me. That's why I love being a coach. That's you're like, yes.
To me, that's what the reward of being a coach is.
Oh.
And you don't do it for. There's a lot. Where do I start about coaches? Jeez Christ. There's a lot of coaches who are in the game of coaching for grandstanding, right? They love the whole, I'm a coach, have it emblazoned on their back or on their balls or whatever the fuck they've got it. And they're not necessarily athlete focused, but when you're athlete focused, your joy and your reward is when your athlete is able to do something that you have worked on together.
Yeah.
You know, anybody can do something you've worked on together and it's unsuccessful. You can fucking try anything, it doesn't matter. But when it works specifically, then you can go, right, there you go. And it's that nice tick in the box for both parties that person is now confident that what you're saying to them and showing them is a valid working technique. And it's also for you validation that I know this is right and here's a perfect example.
Yeah. The one thing I hate about coaching is like I put it up on Instagram the other day that Mike Tyson talking about before the fight, the nerves before the fight, and then bang, it hit and it's all over. And he was like, you snap back into it. When you're a coach, you don't get hit, but you're fighting that fight with that, and you are like, and you're like, oh, I scream, God, and you're screaming techniques, and your heart rate's going through the roof. See, by the end of it, see if you got 4 or 5 fighters on that show, you go home and you collapse.
Yeah, you've done that obviously in your past coaching, and I've done that up to very recently, and I had to knock it in the head because there was that many fighters. I was just literally coming back to the changing room, picking up a different towel and walking down to the cage, and that was unfair to these people.
You're the coaching them, you have to get them there.
And I wasn't warming them up, so I I didn't know what their warm up was like or anything. There was no, I like a time to warm up. My warm ups were very specific to the fight, and not giving too much away. But I like adding that in. If I was just coming up, picking up a towel, going, right, you ready? And I was deflated. Maybe we'd come back from a draw or a loss, or even if we come back from a win. It's hard to keep raising yourself up all those times to actually go and be motivated for that guy or girl that you're walking down to the cage or ring with. I think that I had to curb. There was just too much of that, and you're deflated. You're fucking drained by the end of it.
Yeah, it's an emotional journey. So it is. I didn't enjoy fighting, to be honest. Like I done fighting. I fought 5 times because I knew I had to experience what fighting was in order to coach the. You can't, like I don't like these for coaching. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I personally don't like a coach who's never fought coaching. In the corner.
There's good examples of people who have done this. Boxing specifically, and I suppose in MMA as well. You have Greg Jackson's ever had an MMA fight.
Yeah.
And he's probably one of the more successful MMA coaches. Has a hand in coaching John Jones, Cowboy Cerrone, all those people, and George St. Pierre back in the day. And then you have someone like Virgil Hunter, who coached Andre Ward. Never had a fight in his life, and that was Andre Ward's probably one of our greatest boxers of our generation.
Yeah.
Not very exciting, but absolutely outstanding.
Who is your greatest boxer of all time? Who's the
all time? It's very difficult. I always think it's hard to go and say who is the greatest ever of all time. I think Ali.
You're not allowed to be on the fence.
Ali is definitely up there, but he wouldn't be the greatest for me. You have to go with the weight. So I would say at heavyweight for me, Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis was again he was very underrated because he was at a time of good heavyweights as well. But Lennox Lewis literally beat everybody. Go and look at his box record. Yes, he lost to Hasbeen Rahman in South Africa, but he came back and absolutely iced Rahman. He beat Klitschko. He beats Klitschko. He beat Tyson. He beat Holyfield. He beat Holyfield twice, although the first one was absolutely disgraceful. He got it as a draw. Plus, he has an Olympic medal. He has literally transversed eras of boxing as well. So I think for me, heavyweight, it would have to be Lewis. And I think that's the standard. I think if Lewis were to take on, and I know there would be different weights nowadays, so if you were to say if Lewis was to take on, say, a Sonny Liston or a Muhammad Ali, it wouldn't even be close. It wouldn't even get out of 5 rounds.
I know, it's the greatest of all time. It's a hard one to call, but Roy Jones for me was just
wonderful. I was watching a couple of Roy Jones Junior videos last night. He was utterly amazing.
We grew up in a perfect time, didn't we, for like the boxing era? We grew up in the Tysons, the Lewises. We got to see them all.
Hamed, we had Steve Collins, we had Chris Eubank, we had Nigel Benn, we had Lloyd Hunnigan, we had Julian Jackson. If I ever know who Julian the Hawk Jackson is, Julian Hawk Jackson is probably the hardest puncher ever to walk this planet. The guy who knocked out, what do you call him? And see his face, a British guy, right in the last round. Julian Jackson absolutely iced him. But we have seen so many even in our own country. We are very lucky. We've obviously seen the Barry McGuigan, and I'm covering the whole of Ireland when I'm saying
that's one of the strangely positive outcomes of the Troubles. Kids were put in the boxing clubs, to keep them off the streets, to keep them out of the Troubles. Mm-hmm. So you've got hard working class kids who are used to fighting for a life, and suddenly they're being an outlet.
Mm-hmm. And the hardship, that's the issue.
Yeah, they know what suffering is. And that's why I think, I don't know if MMA is going to take off as much because of this feminizing of what I call feminizing, or you call demasculating of men, because it does take a certain breed of guy. I admit openly, I was not a fighter. I done fighting, but I am not a fighter. That's not what I am. I'm a coach, and I'm honest enough with myself to know that I'm not a fighter. So it's never. I enjoy grappling, but I just hated having to go in spars. Oh fuck, this one hurt.
I actually genuinely didn't really enjoy MMA sparring. I didn't enjoy it. I really adored boxing sparring. To me, I was fucking addicted to it, and this is a very strange thing to say, and I'm sure that there are people out there like this with MMA, but with boxing sparring, I was fucking absolutely, completely consumed by it.
See,
I would have hundreds of in a week.
See if you put gloves on and right, we'll start the knees, we'll fight from the ground, just through ground. I will take that all day, and you can punch me in the face all day, and it's not going to bother me. You stab me up, and I'm like, oh fuck, see if he hits my leg. I'm just going to cry.
Something like you can just. I would happily go the rest of my current existence never absorbing another leg.
You look at Thai fighters and you just go, they're a different breed, aren't they? Like,
you are a different breed of creature.
They're a different animal. Like, people don't understand just how sore a well-placed Thai kick is.
Now in the UFC and in MMA, really, there's the prevalence of the calf kick, right? So Benson Henderson, maybe 5 years ago.
Davey was doing that. But Davey was doing that in his back garden. Just like, oh Jesus!
I remember going to Frank's. I was talking to Jamie Crawford about this two or 3 days ago. I remember going to Frank's and sparring with a guy called Chris. I don't know if you remember Chris. Would have been about the same size as me then. Really nice, but very well-spoken guy. And I remember he was the first person that ever calf kicked me, and he fucking right out of me. I literally could hardly put either of my feet on the floor. And this was with big, thick Thai shin guards on. And Jamie was like, we've been doing this for 20 years. This isn't new to me. I was like, I remember this. And it's just exploded, but it wasn't new to us then. Like, we were doing this. We didn't use it. I didn't use it in fights because I didn't throw kicks in fights because I thought if I kicked them, they were going to kick me.
I always went for a low Thai kick. I had a really good low Thai kick because my hips were so shit I couldn't do anything above the waist. So I worked my low Thai kick, but I don't know. Giving them was no problem. I was the bully that way. I hated taking them.
I even remember that fight in Portsmouth as well. No, it wasn't. That was fighting. I think it was in Ulster. No, what do you call it? Europa. And I remember having done quite a bit of Thai boxing leading up to the fight. Can't remember why I actually chose to go more into Thai boxing, and I thought I'm going to try crushing a kick here. If somebody throws a leg kick, I think I can do this. Really psych myself up to doing it. Guy throws, wasn't even a hard leg kick. I would say it was pretty like a tentative attempt, and I crushed this kick, and I just thought that was good, and I put my foot on the floor, and it was like this cold wave of pain. He just interacted with my complete nervous system, and I just went, "You fuck off! Ever do that again." I was convinced everything was broken, and it wasn't. It just pretty much bumped my shin, but it was, and I'm never doing that again.
Do you know Gary Flack? Do you know Gary Flaherty, do you?
Oh, yeah.
Gary, I remember I was training with Gary, and we were doing Thai kicks, and we're checking and with shin pads. And he was like demonstrating, and he was like, do this, Buck, and he went bump, and he kicked me, and I checked, and he just, before he put my leg down, he goes, I'm sorry, Bucka. And I was like, I'm all right. And the same thing, as soon as I put my leg down, I was like, fuck. And that was two shin guards. I was like going,
it is probably one of the most, I would say, and people can, anybody who's had a real fight, and I mean a fight that's trained for, and it's a competitive combat sport, you will remember times specifically in these that you were, where you felt physical pain, which most people, I don't think, that literally have been punched elbow, knee in the face. I didn't really feel a great deal of physical pain, but I can think of like 4 times. That was one of them. Getting elbowed in the face in Portsmouth was 2. I got kneed in the hip once by a guy called John Dean in Galway, and that was properly absolute agony. In the same fight, John kneed me in the chest, which was terribly bloody painful. And I think I remember once boxing, getting a body shot and thinking, fuck, that was horrific. But thinking it was okay, taking 2 steps back and going, no, I'm fine. No, I'm not fine. This is horrific. Those are the 5 times I can think, yeah, those are proper. That was pain.
You know something? It is something though. It's like you fear it, you don't. But see, when you do it, you understand that the fear of getting punched is far greater than actually even the worst punch in the world. The fear of what it was going to be like was much worse. Like I know there's like I train with a guy called Martin Dunn Sistema, and I know people think it's a joke, but Martin is one of the most dangerous men I know. He's insane the things he does. And he does that 1-inch punch and he knocks me flying. I've experienced all this stuff, and he's put me on the floor with a wee small punch like that. And Rodney Moore will tell you about it. Rodney Moore will tell you his heart exploded. It's just insane. Like
some of the stuff that those guys do, and there's a vast amount of it to me looks legitimate, like a vast amount of it. And then
there's some that's just all.
Yeah.
Of course it is, but listen, I only tell what my experiences are. And I genuinely have never been hit harder in my life by anyone or any, and the entire of Rodney Moore's gym will tell you the same thing. There's video, he's just putting boom, like, and there's videos of me square on to him, right? And I'm like, right, here we go. As hard as I can, a right hook, I throw it as hard as I can into his stomach. He goes, and then hits me, and I'm like, fuck, down the floor. It's insane.
I don't know how you get into MMA, right? I get into MMA through traditional martial arts. And I used to love traditional martial arts videos when I was younger. Like all the weird, like Game of Death and all that sort of shit and fucking Pray for Death. And everything had death in the title. And I always thought that pretty much that's what competitive martial arts would be. And I like that shit, you know, that sort of like the 1-inch punch.
Of course, it's awesome. It's cool as fuck, isn't it?
Sean Connolly and I, right, whenever we used to do the door together, we used to try and find the most obscure martial arts, right? So we would look up, but then obviously the internet, none of us had the fucking internet then because we were poor. Didn't exist. Well, it did exist, but it was dial up and it was dreadful. And so we'd have to like go to the library and get out martial arts books and find the most obscure bullshit martial arts to tell people about, right? With, like, you know, red sand pan where your hand turns red with power and all this bullshit. I'd be talking mad shit to people and people go like, these two dicks talking about. But that's what I thought. Genuinely, that's what I thought if I went to a martial arts class. This is what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be all this fucking, you know, people levitating and wizards.
Is you 35 at this point?
Huh?
We're 35 at this point?
Yeah, totally. To say I was dramatically underwhelmed was a fucking great understatement. It was like, all right, guys, we're really going to train here. Oh, fuck. When do I learn magic? You know, when do I learn like monkey and disappear? But no.
Do you know what MMA did do? It destroyed the illusion.
Yeah.
It put all the, like, because boxers, boxing, Muay Thai, wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Russian Sambo.
Mm-hmm. Judo. Yeah.
That's it. Judo's actually one of the most underrated.
It is a very underrated art.
I'd say, like, my daughters, I'm going to make sure they do judo because the concrete is as hard no matter what. In fact, the concrete's harder if you're heavier, you know, and it's the thing of leverage. I think every girl should definitely know how to do judo and do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because of the guard position.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I don't understand. I was actually talking to my BJ coach in Australia, Paulo Gamers, about this in episode 2 there. And we were talking about saying, like, why do you not put children into this martial art? Think about the self-esteem element alone.
It's fun.
It's great. Okay, you're touching, which is something we are losing. But look at this COVID shit. Do you know we're losing the ability to have this what is to be human.
Mm-hmm. So communication, like you and I talked about communication before we started to record. Communication covers everything from a physical appearance to a physical touch to how you and I are conversing now.
Yeah.
And not for any child. Like when you watch kids play, not that I ever watch kids play in a fucking playground, I swear to fuck. But if you were to do that as a sociological experiment, you will watch children and they'll be grabbing hold of each other, they'll be wrestling around, they'll be having, that's a form of interaction. That is a form of communication. And to me, that's why I think something like judo, specifically for younger people, and you might pick up judo and then never ever put it down. You might be putting the next Ronda Rousey together, you know, or together. And whenever that happens, a child they'll learn a place in life. They'll either learn that they love this or they learn that they hate this. And they might be more suited to snooker or football or golf or badminton or boxing or whatever. But I think that children should have that in school. That would be one of my views. That should be a school program.
Every single person needs to know what it's like to get punched. They should need to know what it's like to get thrown. They should need to know what it's like to be put in a position where you're completely, totally dominated. Mm-hmm. And you know how scary that is, especially the gi on you, and you've got the gi on, you can't breathe, and but that's what makes you grow, because no one wants to do that, and that's what the difference between a fighter or a competitor is. You know, none of us ever walked in going, I can't wait to be choked unconscious. I can't wait to be hit in the face. Oh, those big Thai kicks, give me more, you big sexy. No one does that.
No.
But we do it, we did it anyway. And that's what makes it grow. And that's what sets you apart. And you'll see all these people, you know, revering the fighters like the gladiator days. But the reality is, every single person on this planet has the ability to do that.
They do. I agree 100%.
Every single person. And if you did do that and you realized what fighting is, or you, it's either going to take one or two ways, depending on social background and all, but you're either going to respect it, you're never going to use it, or you're going to become a bully. But if you know, if the bully knows every other bully that anyone's going to bully is going to have a chance of beating him, he's not going to do it.
That's the equality of arms, in my opinion, in that respect. But I also, I don't know, I think that by teaching people martial arts as well, I'm not one of those people that believes in discipline in martial arts. Now, I don't believe that. Now, that sounds like a strange thing. But what I don't think that if you go to a gym, say you go and pick a boxing club and you go there, that gym is not going to be able to instill a discipline in you. You are going to have to instill that discipline in yourself because you want to do that.
But do you not think that it's the club's duty to facilitate the ability to teach them?
Of course you do, yes. And being somebody who did coach young people in boxing, do we have, I can give you 1,000 examples of this. If a child, as even some very, very talented young boxers between the ages of maybe 10 and 14, right? Very, very talented. They just had no interest in boxing. Their parents were making them go. So their discipline is out there somewhere else. It's nothing to do. They don't like boxing. They are being told to go to boxing. So you're never going to push them in the right direction. And by pushing them, you're literally like positive charges. You're going to drive them further apart. I think there are definitely kids. I've seen it happen recently before with our guys, and he started when he was about 9 or 10 and he didn't like it. Now this guy is 16, 17, an absolute beast. When he hit 15, he got an intrinsic enjoyment out of coming to the gym. He was able to interact. And
testosterone kicks in, girls kick in, ego kicks in.
He got the good shape. He's a big guy, 6 foot now, and like so he's getting that joy out of coming in and out of the club, and he's enjoying what he does. And the discipline then is self-created because he knows to keep him feeling like that, he has to stay here. So he's going to come and do those things that make him feel good outside. And that's, to me, what real discipline is. And yes, there's the self-denial of eating garbage food, drinking, staying out late, all that sort of shit. That all comes along with this because I can't go and do all those things. Like I don't think I had 20s. I genuinely, and you'd be the same. My 20s were wasted.
I didn't drink till I was 25.
I don't think I really drank. I was like 28. 29. Yes, okay, I went out and had a few beers with mates and all, but I wouldn't have classed myself.
I didn't touch a drop of drink that was 20. Not one drop of drink that I touched when I was 25.
Yeah, that's amazing. I would have said, like, if somebody said to me, do you drink? I would have said no. Up until that, I fucking definitely do now. I've got a beer machine about 2 meters away.
I've got into whiskey in a big way, so I have. I've got into whiskey in a big way, so I have. Oh, I love whiskey now. It's great. I was taught, this guy, my friend knows, brought this bottle of whiskey down. It's a middle and extremely rare, something 1.8 million a cask. You can't buy it. You have to buy it by the cask and all that. It was just this crazy story, that apparently you're called down. It's an 8-year waiting list, and it's only opened up once every 8 years for the vase or something. I'm getting some of these facts wrong, but then you get picked to get interviewed. And then you have an interview by the master distiller, and then he decides whether he's going to sell you a cask or not. This could be an elaborate story he told me. I don't know.
So it's a good story.
It was 1.8 million cask, this thing. So and he brought me through this whole journey of how to drink whiskey properly and all. And fuck, it was an experience, and then so like it locked this experience in my head, and then I've just loved whiskey since. Yeah. He's a bastard. He's ruined me.
I never really got into it. I would only ever drink beer, and I never really got into whiskey or spirits or anything. I drank spirits a couple of times, and fuck, did I feel awful afterwards. I don't get it.
But here's the thing: I would sit in a whiskey for 3 hours. One small whiskey, I would just sip it. I literally just like the taste of it.
Yeah.
So it's actually stopped me drinking. That's my excuse, okay?
Well, that's a good idea. I drinking whiskey to stop me drinking.
I'm going to come back now because talking about systema there, so we got sidetracked. The reason I was talking about systema is Martin does this thing where he calls it information and he punches you right, but he draws a line and he says, you are safe over this line And for me, you're going to receive a punch, okay? It's going to get harder every time. But when you receive it, the only way you receive it is you step over the line, and that's indicator to me that you're allowing me to punch you. And then if you step back out of the line, that's it over until you come back again. So it's this psychological experiment where you're stepping into pain. You're going to receive pain. And every time you do it, it's going to get harder and harder. And I mean, speak to Rodney Moore about this. The pain, the way it goes in, it hits. It's not like here. It's inside. You feel this energy go into you, and it just, wherever it is, it goes through you. It's like a bomb going off. Rodney said Martin hit him, or Andrew hit him, who's Martin's instructor, in the heart. And it went inside, and his heart just went. And he said 2 days later it was still hurting. And he actually hit who do you call the fucking fella Rodney fought? The American, the great.
Oh, Dean Lister.
Dean Lister. He fought Dean Lister, and he done a punch to Rodney, and Dean Lister came up and was like, "What did you do to me in that fight? You hit me a shot." So that's a genuine story. But then what Martin does is he then makes you put a blindfold on, and he stands you down the room, and he says, "Stay there." And then he goes, I'm going to move somewhere in this room, and you're not going to know where it is, but I'm going to hit you. And your job is you have to walk normally. You cannot slow down. You have to just keep going. And it's that psychological, it's proper psychological terror inside you, because you're going to receive a really hard punch, and you know it's going to cripple you. And you have to somehow find that way and that confidence in yourself just to accept the pain, and accept the pain as part of life. It's a real life lesson. That's why I love stamina. It's a system. And when you actually look into it, it's a very deep system. There's like massage in it. There's breathing exercises. It's just phenomenal.
That's Russian, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the most peaceful fucking art I've ever seen. It's unbelievable.
Where it came from, though, I know obviously
the Cossacks.
Yeah, so they're going further east again. So it is coming from India. It's coming from China. That's
they've got the way they do sabers and all. It's very you can see all the cultural similarities in it. But the breathing exercises are just unbelievable. I have never seen anything like it in my life.
It's actually interesting. As I said, I would be one of the. I suppose I am a mark for weird things like that. I love the idea of something like that really existing. And as I said to you, the traditional martial arts route for me into mixed martial arts and then into boxing and wrestling.
I'll tell you how bad it is. How mad it is. You get real knives and you get stabbed. Literally, you get stabbed. It's like the knife is it's crazy. I remember the first time I met Martin, he grabbed the knife and he said, "Do you see this knife?" And he goes, do you think it's special? And he's like, "Yeah." And then he grabbed my back of my head and he just shoved the thing right in my eye. And he's like, started pushing him, pushing away. And he's like, "Do you feel the energy of the knife? Do you feel the energy of the knife?" And I was like, "Yes." And then he just grabbed it under my balls. And he goes, "What about now?" And I was like, "Whoa." And he's pushing this in and I'm just going, "Fuck." And then he just throws the knife on the floor and he goes, "Is the knife dangerous?" And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "But it's lying there." And he's like, "No. You see, that's the part of the knife. You will fear the knife because the energy's there, but it's not the knife you've got to fear, it's the person you've got to fear."
Yeah.
And it's this real deep psychological experience. That's why I like it. And it's very, to me, I can see, you can, if anyone sort of discredits any martial art outright, bar those people that go and stop people and all that shit, then you're being foolish, because there could be an element of that movement and that art that you could incorporate to your fight game and experience.
The first martial art I started with was Wing Chun, and I'm just going to throw it out there, Wing Chun's bollocks. But there is a certain element of Wing Chun that I have used literally in every form of combat sport that I've done, and it's a really simple step, and it's a circle step. And I've incorporated that into boxing. I've incorporated that loads and loads of times into freestyle wrestling, and I've used it in MMA. And weird you mentioned, because I was actually thinking about this the other day, because I watched a YouTube video of some Wing Chun master fighting an MMA guy, and the guy brutalized him. It was awful. And I just thought, fuck, I remember I did that, and I thought it was great. But then this boat was, but the circle step is superb, and you have used that loads. And I thought, well, that is one element of a martial art that I've taken away and used, even though overall the art is utter bollocks.
Hold on. I have done utter shit as well. We've all have. Everyone did. If you're from the 80s, you've done utter shit when it comes to martial arts. But there was something about that martial art that drove you on to try to find another one.
Yeah, totally.
Try to find another. Try to find, and all those experiences accumulate. You know.
The thing is, unfortunately for me, I have like this. I think it's like a weird disease, right? If you were to say to me, let's go and run a 5K, I would say, no, let's go and run a marathon over a mountain. If you were to say to me, let's go and, you know, let's go for a cycle down the towpath, I'd say, no, let's go and cycle 100 miles. There's like this constant search for doing something more, doing something better, doing something different. So whenever I first went to martial arts, I was getting away from perils of youth activity, and I was playing soccer at the time. So I just wanted something to take me away from the perils of outside life. And when I found martial arts, I thought, well, there has to be a way of competing in this. I have to try to have a go at this. And how that came about for me was Johnny, my brother, he was going up to, I didn't have a football match one Saturday, and he called over to Mum and Dad's house. And I said, well, where are you going? And he goes, I'm going to a fighter's class. I was like, a fighter's class? Can I go? And he goes, no, you have to be invited. I says, well, why don't you invite me then? I can go. Well, you can't go, you have to be invited. I said, well, just fucking invite me. And he goes, right, you can come along, but I don't think you're going to be able to train. I said, right, okay. So I went along, and Sucker goes, yeah, do you want to join in? Yeah, do. And that was it for me. That was it. Never had I put a pair of boxing gloves on and hit another person in my life. And that was it for me. That day onwards, gone.
For me, like the one guy that I have done genuinely, like I am very open and honest about this. The one guy who had the most influence on how my life turned out is Davy Patterson. Mm-hmm. Without Davy, I would not be doing this. Without Davy has been the foundation of everything I've done. And the reason why is I went to jiu-jitsu, where we were in Gracie Baja, you know, back when I was like in the Maysfield Leisure Centre. Mm-hmm. I was 20, so we're talking 23 years ago.
Mauricio, wasn't it? Mauricio Cordy?
Yes, that's right. I was even before that. I was there before he came along. I remember coming in, but Davey put on gloves. He was doing his progressive combat, you know, the stuff.
Jeff Thompson.
Yeah, Jeff Thompson stuff. And he started punching me. And that was the first time I'd ever, and I don't know, I thought I was a karate expert and all, you know, as a kid, kung fu, done a lot, but never had received proper punches. And when he hit me, I felt so embarrassed. I remember and I didn't know what to do. And it was like exposing all my built up, I'm a killer ego. As I realized, like, it just imploded. It was like doing DMT, your entire universe just fucking boom disappears, and you're in your new reality. And the reality was, I can't fight for shit.
Terrifying when you discover that. It's literally terrifying,
isn't it? Did you ever get that? Do you know, like, I think people need to experience it, but you know, when you're just dominated by a good grappler. This is one of the, you know, when you have, again, these are seminal moments in combat sports for every person who's ever competed. The first time I ever came into contact with somebody who was what I would describe as an elite grappler was Dave Finlay. Dave Finlay is one of my life inspirations. The man is a fucking utter legend. He came to train with us, and we didn't have mats on the floor, so it was just a hardwood floor. Davey will tell you about this because Davey was there. And the first time I ever trained with Dave, 60s at the time, and I've never got a kicking like I got a kicking that day. He brutalized me, and I remember nearly crying. And I was a guy 20, 21, thought I was tough, thought I was in great shape. I was nearly in tears. This old man had just kicked the absolute life out of me. And then I thought, my God, I don't know whether I've got this. I don't know whether I'm cut out to keep doing this. And then come back but this is one good thing about an ego, and I don't agree with ego, by the way, but my ego wouldn't allow me to back out. It wouldn't allow me to go. You need to have ego. Ego keeps you alive.
Yes, it wouldn't allow me to quit, so I kept going back. And then, but week after week of going back, I got better, and I didn't feel as bad about myself because I was leaving there nearly in tears. I felt fucking awful. Like, I remember sitting in my car just feeling like the most awful thing in the world had happened, that you discussed there with Davey, that your world had just fallen in, because I had been told that you don't need grappling's crap. What are you talking about? You just hit the person, they'll fall over. And this guy was absolutely, I'd never been in this much pain. There was portions of my anatomy that I wasn't aware existed, were bleeding. It was fucking horrific.
See, in the early 2000s,
yeah.
See in the early 2000s when we were doing this,
Mhm.
like, people don't realize, and this is not being big over tough, like now it's different, people know, but back then when it was like an alien thing, you were literally a ninja. You could kill people, but you could literally choke people unconscious. You knew how to do those flying, spinny, back heel thingy bobbies that only seen in Kung Fu. Because you were literally doing it day by day. And I remember getting the scraps on the door in the early 2000s, and knee bars and arm bars. I remember Big Tim, all right, God rest his soul.
Oh, Tim.
Oh, fuck, I love Tim. But we were doing the door chain. And this guy was being an absolute asshole. He was punching everyone, punched a girl, punched a guy, just to be a dick. We grabbed him out and we brought him out, and he was just struggling like crazy. And he was striking and punch. So Tim tripped him up and put his knee on his stomach and just pushed his knee into his stomach. Next thing you know, it's like, and your man just stood up, and your man just looked at me all and went, "Did you just shit yourself?" And he just goes, "Oh." And he got up, and there was shade all up his white shirt, and his mates were going nuts at the door, going, "Get him!" And we opened the door, and he's like, "Come on, lads." And he just and we're like, "Oh my God, fuck, it was funny."
Brilliant.
But yeah, sorry, I interrupted you there.
Those are the things that back in those days, like the early, really, really early days, the genesis of what has become a global sport. People didn't understand how, like, as I said, like, there was things that you were doing specifically to me with wrestling, because that was my opening. That was my, when they say, like, if you take DMT, you have a third eye that opens. Yeah. That was my third eye opening, of feeling that some of the stuff that I'd wasted 2 years on had no bearing. It was just silly, and I needed to stop it. And whenever I started, as I said, third eye had opened, and you kind of looked differently. You felt different about yourself. And that's one of those things that Big Tim, obviously doing a bit of training too, and just even the mind or a bit of pressure on somebody, their whole central nervous system has just decided to shut down and shit himself because they're prepared. And it's a terrifying thought. But I tell you, if you get a chance to chat with Davey will tell you the same stories about Dave. That just, I was talking with Danny Core. Danny Core was on our podcast about a year ago. Another legend of a man who's done a fabulous amount for this sport.
Right.
Wonderful, wonderful guy. But he was telling us that Dave is in his 80s now and still coaches in their gym, right? Now, I said to Danny, does he still do the thing where he stands on their fingers? And he goes, yes! He says, I've had to get him to stop this. Brilliant. I love all the Dave stories. I can literally fill an 8-hour show with Dave Finley's stories. Whenever there's a position in wrestling called parterre, or table position, where you're pretty much down and you're on all fours.
Yeah.
Extend your hands out. If you put your fingers out, and Dave was coaching us, he would just stamp on your hands. And you're like, like, what are you putting your fingers out for? So Dave's goal was you had to literally just form on your wrists and your knuckles.
But why? That's taking away a base.
I thought, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. Later on, it became very apparent to me, because whenever the person goes into basically hip to hip and takes a forearm, so you're over the back of the person. If you have your fingers out, if the attacker who's in the side position takes hold of your fingers and pulls the hand back, you have no control. The leverage is too great. But if you try and take hold of the wrist, it doesn't move. And I was like, this makes sense. That's very
detailed, isn't it?
I didn't need to get stamped on. You could have just shown me this. But this went on for like about 5 weeks of just getting your fingers stamped on. And then Dave was like, right, here, show you this. And I was like, makes sense. And it all makes sense.
Do you, like, the guys in their 20s, they just, how do you explain to them, like, you have no idea how much pain you're going to live in your 40s because of the shit you're doing today?
Oh, yeah. Like, you've had your hip replaced.
I need my other one done as well now.
I'm waiting now. I should have had mine done, but because of obviously our current pandemic, that was cancelled. I'm waiting to have my hip replaced. Johnny's.
How bad are you?
I'm going to tell you, I have probably the same as you. I have an incredibly high pain tolerance. Like
I'm a constant 7 out of 10, mate. It's just non-stop now.
I have a very, very high pain tolerance, and I would say it's uncomfortable. I have had worse. But there are certain days where I'm pretty sore, and I can still walk, I can still cycle, I can still do kettlebells, I can still train, I can still box. So as far as that goes, I know it's really, really bad because I've seen the X-ray. But again, with me, the pain tolerance is a bit different from others, and I'm not in a great deal of pain. I don't use pain medication. I use CBD, but I don't use pain medication as a rule. And that's not because I think I'm a tough guy. It's because I just don't fucking need it. I don't know. There's something.
Do you know something like I'm coming to the point where it's going to be a regular occurrence now for me. I need to get something done about it. It's getting bad. You're lucky if you haven't got that point. You're lucky. But I do sleep with pillows. I have to sleep with pillows now between my legs.
No, what I got, it's like a pregnancy pillow thing I have, but it's like for elderly people, and it's a pillow that's kind of shaped like a little heart, but it has grooves in it, and you put it in between your legs, and it keeps the hip distance. Yeah. Without it, and it falls down like, ugh, and then you have to stand up, and then it clicks back in or out, depending on what way you were at that point. But that's
any young MMA fighters out there listening to this?
Oh,
I'm telling you, trust us. We know what we're talking about.
Well, see, I wouldn't tell anybody to stop.
No, I wouldn't. I'm joking, but like it is a reality.
Take better care of recovery because I didn't have recovery. Neither did you. Your recovery and my recovery was going to do the door for 7 hours.
Aye, we didn't have a clue. The sports moved on massively as far as professionalism. Like it used to be you walked up, you still do go. That was it.
And you're like,
that's the way it was. Like, I know he's 6'8", but he's the only one you got. It's crazy.
But now I'm glad because when we were there, I've got to tell you, whenever people started talking about things that are very in vogue now, which is weight cutting, weight cutting for me didn't really happen. I walked around at 68, 70 kilos and fought at 70 kilos, so I didn't have to cut weight. There was no weight lower, so it didn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But I remember once or twice having to lose weight. I didn't really know what I was doing because nobody knew what they were doing. So you were kind of asking people what they would do. And fucking utter rubbish that people were coming out with was, don't eat after 4, only eat on a Tuesday when the sun stand on your head at night. And you're like, what is even going on here? There was no real scientific rhyme or reason. People weren't even saying things. Have you used a sauna suit before? Are you limiting your calories? Are they counting your calories? Have you tried to solve that? There was none of that. It was just mad bro science bullshit based on some bodybuilding bollocks from the 50s or something. It was just so outlandish. And
do you know what I remember? Sorry, go ahead, continue on.
The reason I love that is because nowadays I'm watching guys who are fighting on, say, the biggest local shows like Clan Wars and Cage Contender and stuff like that, who are amateur fighters, but they are doing this like a fucking pro, and they have got
attitude
down. They've got their meal prep, they've got their water, they've got their hydration down. It's superb. But without people like you and me as the pioneer for doing that, they wouldn't be doing that.
It's not when you think like, I don't think we're pioneers of the sport.
Specifically in a country that has produced the most popular mixed martial artist ever.
I know.
So, and I know.
I remember rolling with John, and he had just got his blue belt.
So did I, yeah.
And I thought it was just like, I was like, but I was going, I'm rolling a blue belt, fuck, because there was no blue belts.
Blue belt was a wizard. Blue belt, as far as I'm concerned, a blue belt.
Keys was a white belt. Graham Keys was teaching, he was the white belt.
Yeah.
Alan Lowry was a white belt.
Yeah.
Everyone was white belts.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just learning as you go. Like I remember us learning MMA off a VHS in Davy's garage thing. We're on the floor watching it. We're like, pause that, hold on, right, do that. Where does he put his arm? Okay. That's how we taught ourselves to learn. People do not understand how lucky they are today.
You can literally go on now and type into YouTube whatever position you want to learn. You can type in how to close a triangle. Like I remember first time seeing a triangle choke.
Do you remember your first time bar?
Wizardry. I can tell you where that came from. Have you ever heard of? You probably have heard of him. There's a guy called Lee Hasdell. Have you ever heard of Lee Hasdell? Lee Hasdell came over and did. I don't know. You might have even been at it. Seminars here, and
Probably was one of them or
first
something.
time I'd ever seen an armbar. And I don't even think he called it an armbar. I think because obviously the lineage that he had been in Japanese dojos. So there was like a pro wrestling dojo, but mixed in with MMA fighters, sumo fighters, all in the same dojo. And I think this was all, I think like cross arm breaker or something it was called. Getting into these positions. I was like, fuck, what is this? And then the next time I saw something similar was with Rick Young. Remember Rick Young?
Rick Young.
A brutal judo exponent, a wonderful guy. A guy who did a lot of JKD as well.
Right.
So I don't know if he ever fought MMA, but his judo was frightening. And it's the first time I'd ever seen a figure 4 arm lock. And the first time I'd ever seen a choke, a rear naked choke. And I actually used a choke that Rick Young showed on one of Daly's shows.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was a roll forward with the choke. I choked the guy within one of Daly's.
Who's the greatest grappler you've ever went with? Who's the guy, like, I mean, all people you've ever grappled with, you just went, holy fuck.
Yeah, that you just felt so Hodger Gracie.
Hodger Gracie.
Hodger, yeah. Hodger, one day he would be over. He would be over here quite regularly, and this is before Hodger was the epitome of grappling. And there was one day it was in the old squash court in Valley Leisure Centre. So Hodger was there. I don't even know if he was teaching or he was just over training or having a laugh. And Graham says, right, I'll tell you what we'll do. We're going to get 4 people to attack Hodger, and he's going to try and tap you. I was like, right, who is it? So Graham says, me, Gareth Lloyd. Do you remember Gareth Lloyd? Gareth. Yeah, there was Gareth Lloyd, me. I'm trying to think, was it Hugh?
I remember Hugh.
Yep. And there was somebody else. I'm trying to think who the other person.
Jamie would have been. Remember Big Jamie, the blonde-haired fella?
Yes. Yeah.
Him? No.
It might have been him as well. There was 4 of us anyway, so we actually had this little team huddle, this team tactic, and they said to me, right, you double leg him instantly. He's going to come out, double leg him, just hold on. You're probably not going to take him down. And right, so while other people are holding his arms, literally that was the goal, right? So out we came, double leg, shot in, held on to him. Gareth Lloyd went to get on his back, but fell off and footlocked him and Hodger tap. And I thought, well, that was easy. And he goes, go again. We were like, oh, okay, but we were like, same tactic. This is it. I'm telling you, I double legged him and I just got stuck. It was like running into a wall, just boom. And then Hodger proceeded literally just to use his weight. And I was like a pivot point for him, driven into the ground, while he proceeded to strangle everybody else, leaving me to the last of like this, like having a car parked on you, and I was just by this stage curled up in a fetal position, wishing for it all to end as he just laughed his way around, eventually taking me back and choking me out. And it was just like,
it's just scary, isn't it? Like, I just don't think people understand. Paulo done it to me when I was getting my blue belt off him. And it was the first time in my life I truly understood how dangerous a good grappler is. He treated me like he hated me.
I felt in that way what I imagine drowning would be
like. Yeah. Like, see when he put the gi over the face and you couldn't breathe. And it's like you've been grappling 45 minutes. I grappled him 45 minutes. He choked me unconscious 5 times. Like 5 times, just like, and I mean properly out. I was saying, like, there was one time I was like, my nanny had died when I just got over to Australia. So I was coming to the end of Australia. So it was like about 7-8 months, no, 9 months maybe. And apparently I started going, I came around going, Nanny, it's okay, Nanny, I'm okay, Nanny, don't worry, I'm fine. Like, what the fuck am I talking about? They were telling me, it's like, my best friend, Australian guy, Luke, he's like, yeah, Paul, you were saying this. I was like, wow. It's like,
oh, was it?
It's going, fuck me, but grappling's great, so it is, isn't
it? That, as I said to me, meeting Dave was like the DMT moment for me, the third eye open, and I utterly adore freestyle wrestling as a combat sport. It is just, I've never done anything physically that was more demanding, and I've never had more fun doing something that was so painful.
Yeah.
I had great fun with it, but it didn't, to me, I just didn't get the same feeling as I did whenever I was wrestling.
I don't think there's a lot of coaches realize just the position of power they're actually in for a lot of young men's lives. They're like a lot of those young men, like when I owned Freddie Academy Ireland, it was pole glass. You know, it's not an affluent area. You're going to have a lot of single mothers. You're going to have a lot of crime. It's a hard, poverty.
By the boxing mentality, people who know what struggle is.
Yeah, the struggle, and it's in life. It is struggle for them, and you could be possibly the only person that could be stopping them from going down a different path, and you don't know that.
Yeah,
I've been told by, I'll never mention names, but I've been thanked by 2 or 3 fighters. No, 4, 3. Yeah, because I had a conversation 1. 3 fighters who told me without the influence I had on them, they would be different paths. One said suicide, one said
prison maybe, or something.
Prison, yeah. So it's just
I don't think, as you pointed it out, the influence of a good coach on somebody's life can never be overestimated. Can ever be overestimated. Like those people that you have made a massive positive difference in their lives, they could go on to have good jobs, be productive people, have families of their own, and then produce that influence later on into somebody else. Those are generational changes, and I think it's something that I don't think you should be. I don't think you should be quiet about it. I think you should tell others about that and see the changes it makes.
I think what my problem with the main reason I got out of MMA was I fell out of love with how it was turning out.
That's same me. Fucking hate it.
I just don't like
every dickhead in the pop out t-shirt for me.
It's not. See, I understand it's a business now. It's not a martial art. It's a business. So you're going to go where the money's at. But for me, the MMA was a way to better yourself. It was like a test, a personal test. Yeah, of course you were young, you enjoyed the ego sort of thing. You're a cage fighter. People tell you, but it was something like I was my bullying experience as a kid drove me to martial arts to try to better myself. I used to dream of being the Bruce Lee, beating up all the bullies, and then you get your balls knocked in, and you would hate it, So I have been down that. That's where the suicidal thoughts and all and the attempt came from that generation, that childhood, trauma shit.
Mm-hmm.
But MMA gave me a way of finding a way to overcome that stuff. It introduced me to Davy Patterson, who was massive. Davey doesn't understand how much influence he's had in my life. He literally changed my path.
He's had in many people's lives. Davey is such a cool dude. I think I've mentioned Davey literally in every podcast I've been on or every podcast I've ever done, because I know Davey wouldn't want people to be talking about him the way you and I are talking about him now, because it's not in his nature. Davey is literally one of the most influential people in martial arts in Ireland, and that is the end of the story.
He is, when it comes to grapplers, like, he's terrifying, and he's so influential, but he's so good with people. Like when you get to know Davey, like, he will do anything for you, and that he instilled that sort of in me. I've sort of taken that from Davey. So there's a massive influence, and like Davey introduced me to kettlebells.
Yeah.
Without Davey, I wouldn't be into kettlebells. So like, I literally owe Davey everything, because I wouldn't have a gym. I'd be a leisure centre attendant, hating my life, just accepting the bullshit.
Yeah. Funny Davey. I have a lot of funny Davey stories. But I remember it was Akuma MMA about 3 years ago with Dan Linjak, and he was fighting for the Akuma welterweight title. And it was the first show I'd been to in Ireland since Cage Wars, where they had TVs in the back, right? So we were sitting watching the TV in the back, and there was a guy sitting watching this fight. And there was a guy on the ground, and he was trying a really bad attempt at a rubber guard. And I was looking at this, and I was going, I don't think rubber guard, I wouldn't be trying that in here. Like, I think that's an awful. And the guy looks round at me as if I had just said to him, would you like to view some fucking kiddie porn or something? And I was like, what? And so it went on, and he just looked up at me and goes, Davy Patterson can make that work. And I said, listen, mate, no harm to you. See, if you told me Davy Patterson could fucking levitate, I would believe you.
He fucking does make it work.
And that, to me, what happened then, unfortunately, for that poor guy on the ground, was he fucked up his rubber guard and got knocked out. Well, I didn't actually go to the guy. I told you, he didn't feel me, but he was obviously one of Davy's students. I didn't know. I'd never met him before. But to me, if Davey could literally make anything work, and that was a great indicator to me that this person had such a belief in Davey. He knew Davey could make that
Yeah.
work. And
Davey influenced he's influenced my coaching style massively. Like, you know, I love Davey's devil in the detail. You know, he is like, it's literally, when you talk about Davey, sometimes it's like, no, your hand should be there, not there. And you're like, you're like, oh fuck, right? And he's like, that exposes the rib, and then it's just these small, and he sees them all the time. And you know, and it's, for me, that is like, it's just a natural talent. You're born with it, and then you just practice and it becomes even better.
I think as well, Davey had a group of people, and I put it basically down to being Davey. He had a group of people at that time.
Greg Loughran
is the greatest MMA fighter in Ireland, and
Thomas Duffin,
he was just one of the most amazingly talented guys I have ever seen. And the people who beat Greg's normally come back and beat the fucking life out of them. You know, if he lost a fight, he would like, no, I'm going to go and change that, even if it was a horrible finish.
And the one thing was, Davey used to beat the shit out of us all.
That's what's more bloody terrifying. I remember, Greg, Jesus, he's so fucking, he was just, his fight with Dan Abrol, if anybody gets a chance to watch this.
Davey tries jumping the kids in the room of the ring, and I was, what are you doing?
I remember watching that, and I think, you know, it's a very short fight.
But it was a war. It was like,
the left hook Dan Abrol hit Greg with at the start and put him down. I still, to this day, do not know how on earth he came round from it. It was a fabulous shot. But not only did he come round from it, reverse the position and knock down dead with an elbow on the ground, it's one of the best, fastest Irish MMA fights.
Like, his physique,
it's frightening.
He was just like, he used to be a wee chunk. Greg is a wee chunk. And then he's just this fucking like, he's like carved from granite or something.
I remember there was always a case where somebody said to me, like, would you fight Greg? And I said yes every time. Not because I believed I could beat Greg. I think Greg would have knocked me unconscious properly, like a light. But I think I just wanted to have the experience of saying that I fought Greg, because when I was watching him fight, I knew how fucking good he was. It was different to everybody else at that stage for me. I used to love watching him fight. We were fought in many different cards in the same shows, and I would have tried my best to get out of wherever I was to go and watch him. He was absolutely outstanding.
You know who had potential? Big Hugh had potential. Like his left hook was insane. Remember he knocked the Swedish guy out cold?
Yeah. I don't know what that guy thought he was doing, but he came out with the old Hoist Gracie with the right hand low, and she just looked at him and hooked him. He just bounced out of the rope.
It was insane though. They were crazy, crazy days. Jesus.
Brilliant. And
you wouldn't actually get away with it today.
No.
You wouldn't be able to do that stuff that what we done. Like,
I remember that first ever MMA show that was held here by Davey. We were told on the way down, like, the car park is full of police trucks. Everybody's going to get arrested. This is fucking going to go terrible. This is going to be horrendous. And then it was like, are you still up for doing it? We're like, yeah, of course I am. You're fucking mad. I'm not going to miss this opportunity.
Was that the one I fought Keith Bradley, or was that the one I fought Anto?
I think it was Keith Bradley.
That was my very first fight.
Yeah. And and I remember we drove into that wee car park, and there was like a line of police trucks. I'm like, oh shit. Terribly badly. And it was just insane. The room was bloody mental. People were like grabbing you on the way down to the ring. There was no security. There was nothing.
No one had ever fought me before properly. Like, I had never been in a proper fight before. I'd fought in the street, you know, those wee kiddie fights and wee schoolyard fights. But I'd never been in a fight before. And the fucking scary, isn't it? Like
that to me. But see how stupid I was, and this is an indicator of idiocy. I truly believe I fought Lee Kennedy, and he's a tough bastard as well, by the way. I thought I'm going to knock him out. I'm going to come out. I've been going to boxing here. I think I'm great. I'm going to come out. I'm going to throw this jab. I'm going to fire out straight away. Because at that point, I should have been left-handed, but people kept, because I couldn't hold pads for a southpaw, so they kept fucking making me. Idiotic. Absolutely idiotic. So I came out and I was thinking, I'm going to throw this, I'm going to do that. And the next thing I knew, I was pretty much, my head had bounced off the bottom rope and I was sitting up like a zombie. And I was like, what the fuck has just happened? And it only dawned on me what had happened was I threw this crap jab, like, bleh, and he just fucking bang, straight in the side of the face. I didn't have a clue what happened. I only woke up when my head hit the friggin' rope on the bottom room, and that was my introduction. That was my first ever, if you want, pro MMA fight with head strike. And it was terrifying.
I went into overtime with Keith, and he had dislocated my shoulder. There's a Kimura put on me, and my shoulder was just not dislocated. So I ripped all my shoulder was bollocks, but wouldn't tap. I was like, ah, and so I got into it. But I can remember for that minute, like it was 3-minute long fight or something.
I think they were trying to. I think there were 5s. I'm convinced there were 5s.
I thought it was 3, but all I know is that become the end of that round, that the only reason I knew it was Keith was because I could focus on the flesh-colored blur in front of me. I literally couldn't see a thing. Everything was blurry. I was just fighting for my life. It was the most frightening experience I think I've ever had in my entire life, because you're fighting in front of all these people. Your ego's just being crushed properly. Now you're being exposed. And I remember trying to get the rear naked choke on Keith, and I couldn't get this arm properly because it wasn't working, and he hadn't got the intelligence to put hooks in, and he flicked me over and then choked me out with about 4 seconds to go.
Keith was really good.
I was devastated.
Mm-hmm. Keith was very, very good. Keith was a tough guy. He was into taijutsu and stuff as well. So
that's right. The sports jiu-jitsu and all he's doing.
So it was like you and I probably didn't know very much, and Keith probably knew a bit more then. You know, and he was a tough fucking dude. Like Keith was a properly tough guy.
They were great.
Those really are the seed that's planted this in Ireland. And I have a lot of respect for John Kavanagh. Fucking huge amount of respect for John Kavanagh because of what he's done.
Have to. If you don't, I don't care if you don't like the guy or not. It's up to you. If you personally what you think of him, but to not have respect for him.
Even most times when I hear things like that, I'm always thinking there's probably another line that people should be going down.
Well, I go by what I have met. John's always been there. He's always been a legend to me, a real gentleman. So why?
But I've heard so many times people use the term John is the godfather of Irish MMA. And I'm just going to throw it out there. He's clearly not.
No.
He's not. Because John didn't run any shows, right? John didn't really do anything as an influence. As now people.
No, I would disagree. John was a pioneer as well as much as I was. Like he won the clubs down there. I know you're not meaning to disrespect me. I'm just saying, but I would disagree. I think he's done. I think you've got to think like the Andy Ryans, John Campbell. You've got to think of those guys that were there at the beginning. They were running clubs, and they were building what we were doing in the north. They were building the south, and I think everyone needs.
Even that now, when you hear like when you watch John being interviewed on Ariel Helwani or on Joe Rogan, and he's being held up as without John there would be no MMA in Ireland. That's not the case.
No, that's not the case. That's just sensationalism, I think, isn't it?
Davey, without people like Tom, without Paddy Mooney, simply MMA wouldn't have existed. Paddy Mooney would be the Irish Dana White ultimately at that stage.
Yeah.
And without somebody like that, without Davey, it just wouldn't have existed. There wouldn't have. There wouldn't be an SBGI, there wouldn't be an FAI, there wouldn't be an IFS, or there wouldn't be any of the other major clubs now.
I think what Danny Core's trying to do with MMA, Irish MMA, and amateur MMA is very good, and I think it is something he's regulated, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get a structure in place that basically does what boxing done in the 80s for people, because we're coming into it, like the social deprivation we're about to hit here because of what's happened in lockdown, and the psychological, the problem psychologically, kids are going to be suffering. Yeah. We need, and the best way to get over that is to find a belonging, a community. And if you can find a club where you feel welcome, you're part of and you're treated as an equal, because let's be honest, everyone is equal in the MMA cage, and in the end of the day,
Yeah.
And even if you beat up the guy, if you're the bully, there's always going to be someone that can bully the bully to teach the bully a lesson.
Stronger, faster, better, knows more. And I think what you touched on something there, and the current lockdown that we're in now, I discussed this with you before. My description of what I believe is on its way to us is a tsunami of poverty and a tsunami of mental health issues. And as I described it earlier on, the water is away from the beach. We now can no longer stop this from happening.
No.
And I know, yes, this is a terrible disease and there needs to be restrictions to assist it pissing off. But I just think that in this respect, we are going to have to prepare now, because this is going to hit us very, very hard. And I think the poverty and mental health issues that are coming our way might be a bit more devastating in the long term for a lot of people. People's livelihood is gone, their mental health is fucked. I wouldn't be one of those people who would tell any lies and say that I haven't had darker times because of this. You know, you're locked in the house, you can't go to the gym anymore, you can't, see your mates, you're literally just locked in your room. It's
regardless of what you think or your personal opinion of this thing, what you can't start denying, or the problem is people are denying that there are other problems. People are dying from COVID and there's no denying it. You can't deny it, but there's anomalies there, but there's also people suffering sexual abuse, physical abuse,
and you're locked
poverty,
in a abuser, and you can't help, and that is fuck.
These things need to be.
I have my own views on the restrictions and stuff like that. I do believe there should be some, I just think we're going a bit too far. But that's a completely opposite podcast and a completely different story. But I do think that, as you rightly pointed out, there are other social issues, there are other medical issues, there are other psychological issues that really need equal sort of assistance, and everything's focused so much on one point that these other things are falling to the wayside.
That's the problem.
People don't feel that they are being heard or looked after, and it's destroying them psychologically. And I just think that we're fucked up. We've made a mistake.
There's going to be a lot of businesses go out, and like as a business owner myself, like I have sacrificed so much to get to where I am. Like
this, it's very difficult, really difficult.
There's stats that are showing that gyms are not a main spreader, but what gyms do is they do provide a structure for outlet. I don't think
it should be closed. I haven't worked in gyms all my life. Most people who go to gyms are there because they are interested in their own physical and mental health. So they will look after themselves. They will be clean. They will shower before and after. They will wipe down machinery before and after. And if they're sick, they don't go.
Yeah.
So I just can't see. I understand that even things like golf and rowing and all these outdoor sports are done, like running, rowing, all these sort of things are just put on the back burner. And I don't see scientific. I'm sure there is a scientific basis for it. I'm definitely not a scientist, and I'm definitely not involved in this. But I would just like to think that maybe in the next round of restrictions being removed or released, things like that could even go back and help people to be outdoors again. People are not spending time getting vitamin D and fresh air, and being locked inside is fucking terrible for you.
I don't know. It's like I don't even go down that rabbit hole right now because it
frustrates me. But it's something for me.
Yeah, no, it frustrates. I'm just saying, I'm talking to myself because it frustrates me getting, kills the buzz. I just think there's so much good can happen in this world. We're just, we just seem to fuck it up every time. Well, a few elite.
One of the things I do think that this has done, and it has shown. You always say that crisis doesn't build character, it reveals it. So it's revealed people's character more. So people who maybe you would have thought, that guy's a fucking arsehole, and it turned out they're not an arsehole, they're actually quite a good person. Likewise, a lot of times I've seen it happen, unfortunately. Some people who you thought, they seem like a well-adjusted, normal human being, and they've turned out to be a full-on dickhead. I've seen both sides of this. And I think that it's also made people more innovative in the way they do things. Like you and I are doing this podcast now via Zoom. I like this idea, but I don't think that should be the norm ever again. I think we should be able to meet up and do this in person.
Well, I've bought myself podcasting gear anyway. It's coming tomorrow, thank God, because we're going to be doing these for quite regularly. You might as well. It actually, I think this I'm happy now. I'm chatting to someone and it's like having a meaningful conversation, and that is something that's being removed by lockdown.
It is, and I think that's something that we all will be so fucking grateful for whenever we are returned. We won't take this for granted again. I hope we don't take this for granted again, because as sure as shit on a dog, there's another one of these horrible things hiding somewhere else.
Of course there is.
And I think that, but hopefully with experience it won't be as terrible. I'm just hoping, but you never know. I just hopefully we're talking about relieving some restrictions, and then that will be the.
Well, here, to brighten the subject or the mood up, talk about your podcast. Tell me more about your podcast. How's it going?
Yeah, podcast, unfortunately, actually, what we've just talked about is a bit of a caveat to it, because it's kind of stalled because of this. We had another guy who was doing our editing, our podcast called Not Another Fightcast, and it's with Phil Campbell, who is the commentator of the year, by the way, just one commentator.
Yeah, well, congratulations, Phil, well done.
He is a commentator for Brave Combat Federation. It's a Middle East-based promotion, which is gigantic, and it is also now putting together some of the most amazing fights. And you've seen it produce people like Khamzat Chimaev and stuff like that. Our podcast gone really. It started out absolutely wonderful. You were our first guest. Started out wonderful. We really want to. Our goal was to go to people's home environment, their gym, talk to them, get the sights and sounds of the gym involved in the podcast. So we did that a good 5-10 times, and then lockdown unfortunately happened. And during lockdown, I was able to do a few other podcasts with a couple of bare knuckle guys. Rico Franco, an absolute legend of a man. Guy has a trio of twister finishes as well in MMA, an absolute beast. Smudger Smith, a great guy. I have big Chris McNaughton on, the Northern Irish strongman, Bear Strong McNaughton, lovely human being, wonderful dude. Scott and Jimsy over here on it as well. I do have 5 or 6 shows waiting to be uploaded.
You're getting Mark Godber, Mark Godber, you know, the bare knuckle champion. My friend's getting me in contact with him.
Yeah,
good best friend.
Nice. I'm actually going to contact a couple. I really love BKB. I absolutely, if I wasn't crippled, I would love to have a go at it.
Would you?
Definitely would. Not. I just know I've had my left hand surgically corrected twice now, and
they can just. Nah.
I think I would have liked to have tried it, but the sport fascinates me, so I must try and contact more some of these guys and get them on, because I really enjoy talking about it. It's like a real selfish thing for me, because I like it so much. I want them to tell me stories of it, and everybody said the same thing. It's nowhere near as bad as glove boxing, and I believe that. I truly do. Because you can't hit the person all the time to the face.
Well, I understand that in the sense that, you know, you're not going to take as many, but the shots you do take, it's like bony and
the more superficial damage, the cuts and stuff like damage, rather than the concussive blow of an 8-ounce boxing glove that dissipates a large surface area of trauma to a very small area.
See, they're the shots you don't really. They're the shots you never really feel. It's like they're the ones that damage. They're the ones that they like. I always think to myself that they're in now damage, not the long-term damage. Hence why I've got hip replacement. You know?
But I mean, I suppose the jury's still out on the long-term damage. In a way, we know CTE exists. We know the damage it can cause, but we still don't really know. I suppose, is there a finite number that you get, and then that's it? You're going to get this in the future. Yeah. But we've seen this in our old rugby players, like rugby players from the 70s and 80s, were fucking mad, and they took some serious brutal hits. Same with NFL players, same with NHL players, same with horse riding, and we saw those guys start to get what we would have described then as punch drunk. We now know that is CTE. We now know upper body, head and chest, pre-concussive blows are causing the brain to shake more, and this is leading to damage. So I wonder, you know, I would love to know if there would be a test, sadly, before the person can, you know, obviously the test is done by autopsy now.
Before the person passes.
Yeah, before the person passes, is there something that you can do? Can you be treated with a drug for Parkinson's? Can you be treated with this? Can you be treated with that? And maybe put a stop to it. I digress slightly. Yes, our podcast. So,
that's a very. I think what you're touching on there is something that needs to be spoken about, because it's a contact sport and there is inherent risk in what you're doing. You are taking physical punishment. You are accumulating like trauma, trauma, both psychological and like. You will always remember your first punch. You'll always remember, you know, that
first flash. And then you realize that doesn't really mean anything.
That's part of something in your brain. That's a moment that your subconscious has snapped like a camera shot.
Yeah.
You know.
So my goal with the podcast is hopefully to get our episodes that we have here uploaded I know Phil's going away here again with Brave, and then to try and just really just try and get back into it, using maybe the medium of Zoom like that again. I didn't fall in, I definitely haven't fallen out of love. I love podcasts and I love the idea of internet radio. It just fills me with joy. So I definitely want to keep going with it, but I'm not very good technically. I am up to a certain point, but editing for me is difficult.
I'm actually okay at the editing bit of all my videos.
So Jack Aaron Stoops from Super Rad MMA and Brigade Music, they were doing our editing, and the thing just fell apart ultimately because we were so far apart, living on the other side of Northern Ireland. So that's where we are with it. It's not gone. It will be back to hopefully the way it was before, because I don't want to stop it. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, well, I'm a complete amateur. I have no idea what I'm doing, which reminds me, after this, I'm going to ask you how do I do certain things, because I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm just enjoying chatting and shooting the shit with the guys.
That's what I like about that. Your style of podcast is exactly the same as mine. No preset questions. I've emailed people before about being on the show, and I'm like, oh, can you email me a list of questions? I'm like, no. Why would you do that? That would be like, tell me about a time. No.
Do you know what I do? I've got a notebook and a pen, and we'll start talking, and then I write something down as you're chatting. I go, oh, yeah, I'm going to ask them that, and then I leave you, and then that's what I do. I'm sure I'm going to evolve my systems as I go along, but right now, hey, this is a bit of crack, and it's keeping me amused now over lockdown and chatting with people about things I want to talk to.
Yeah, exactly. I actually have to, unfortunately, go. I've got an appointment to keep.
Yeah, I've actually got an appointment myself at 3, so I've got to go myself.
So, but listen, thank you very, very much for having me on the show. I really, really enjoyed it. We'll definitely do this again, because I
100% loved it. Brilliant.
Being another guy who you obviously being involved right in the genesis of MMA and having both fighting in the same shows, having the same experiences, having the same views pretty much on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I can't not want to do it again, you know. So
brilliant, 100%. I've got Rodney on next week sometime, so that'll be good as well.
Rodney be superb. Again, another guy, flip me. I can start conversation about Rodney and spend hours there, but
we'll cut it there. We'll cut it there before we go into another rabbit hole. Mate,
okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.